My brother called me up and he said, don't come home. Police are waiting for you. I ended up stealing a car. I was driving and took an exit to get some gas, and there's a routine roadblock. I had a handgun in a backpack. And before I stole the car, I told myself that if the cops stop me, I'm going to pull the gun and let them take my life.
So you've done something that very few entrepreneurs can claim that they've done. Within a decade, you've sold 3 companies.
When people talk about growth hacking, I don't think they actually know what it means. What I do is growth hack.
Welcome back to Rise Podcast, Life Stories of Accomplished Individuals. Today we have Dan Martell with us, and I'm going to jump right into his bio and let you guys know. So, Dan Martell is not just the Wall Street Journal best-selling author of Buy Back Your Time, because by exiting 3 tech ventures within a 10-year period, he's also an entrepreneurial legend. Now, as an investor and business growth coach, he's guiding thousands of entrepreneurs worldwide through SaaS Academy, a complete business growth system for SaaS founders. To the uninitiated, the acronym SaaS stands for Software as a Service. Dan is also an Ironman athlete, a philanthropist, and a dedicated husband and father to 2 amazing boys. He's the visionary behind Clarity.fm and Flowtown, and the angel investor behind gems like online education platform Udemy and the AI-powered landing page creation and optimization platform Unbounce. Dan's path wasn't always a walk in the park. He overcame personal battles, including addiction and time in jail. Despite those difficult circumstances, he emerged as an advocate for mental health and addiction recovery. His story isn't just inspiring, it's a roadmap for transformation, making him a sought-after speaker. At the core of Dan's mission is his desire to empower entrepreneurs. He does this masterfully through his social media presence and content production, earning him over 1 million followers across Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, Facebook, and LinkedIn. Dan embodies the belief that success is within anyone's reach through relentless effort and determination. His dedication to unlocking others' potential is not just commendable, it's transformative. The following are quotes by notable people in regards to Dan's book, Buy Back Your Time. Gagan Biani, co-founder of Udemy.com and CEO of Maven.com, said, Dan has read over 1,200 business and productivity books, so you and I don't have to. Buy Back Your Time shows you how to grow your empire without missing family dinners. Lewis Howes, the New York Times bestselling author and host of the School of Greatness podcast, said, a no-nonsense guide to building a thriving business empire, all while living your best life. Dan Martell makes complex systems as simple as 1, 2, 3. Leila Hormozi, CEO of acquisitions.com, said, Dan is literally the only coach I recommend to founders, and it's because he is truly an example of world class. His frameworks are the golden standard. Grateful to call him a mentor and a friend. Dan, welcome.
Gary, I appreciate you, man. That's incredible. Like, it's funny reading that. That was awesome.
How did I do?
Honestly, it's an honor to be here and for you to share that with everybody. And I'm excited. I want to, deliver on that.
I've been feverishly consuming your content, primarily your short form content. I dipped into your vlogs a bit too. And
the vlogs are silly.
No, they're good.
They're
good, but they're supposed to be silly. That's the whole point.
I know. That's why I told you. I was like, we gotta put this stuff out there because it's just who I am.
Look, I'm a big advocate of social media. Like I work with my wife, and she's her and her team have put together, a great platform there. So I'm a big proponent of social media, and I want to jump into your social media as well, because in addition to everything else that you do, having the influence that you do online is that's a whole other beast. I want the format of this podcast is I jump into people's life stories, but I'm having a bit of difficulty with you, and the reason I'm having difficulty with you is because typically a person's life story and their life path is sufficiently interesting to fill up an entire episode. But the work that you are doing now, it's like, I'm at odds because I want to talk about that too, and I've only got a certain amount of time here. So I want to jump into your story first, and then I want to start talking about the current work that you're doing. So, in the bio, in the intro that I read about you, we talked about the time in jail.
Yeah.
We talked about the addiction. Mm-hmm. And what I want to understand is, and I think the value that I'm trying to extract from you is understanding how you go from, we could call it a certain like low point in life in your younger years.
Yeah.
Right. To not being where you are now, because I understand that transition took a lot of time, but I'd like to understand the turning point that got you from that low point onto the path that got you to where you are.
Yeah, I appreciate the question. And what's crazy, Gary, and I want to give you and your audience stuff they haven't heard from me at all, ever. One thing most people don't know is that for 15 years, I never shared that story.
Mm-hmm.
For 15 years. Actually, funny enough, the first time I ever told the story of going, being in trouble with the law and addiction was in Toronto at an event.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason I told is because the organizer, before I went on stage, like 2 hours before I went on stage, said like, oh, by the way, whoever gives the best talk is going to get a $25,000 donation to a charity of their choice.
Mm-hmm.
And I knew I was going to win for marketing growth. And so I went back to my hotel room and my wife was there. She was pregnant. And before I left, I said, I'll be back. I'm going to work on my talk. She goes, I don't want to make you nervous, but my parents are going to come watch. I was like, okay.
They didn't know this about you.
She didn't know.
She didn't know this.
Nobody knew.
So your wife didn't know about...
Gary, nobody knew. My dad knew. My brothers knew.
Yeah.
She knew I got in trouble as a kid, but she didn't understand what I shared today. The high-speed chase, almost taking my life. It was crazy. And what happened was after I shared that, I came off stage. I mean, Tim Ferriss is in the room.
Yeah.
Cameron Harold's there. Mark Echo from Echo Clothing. And all of them came up to me and said like, wow, thank you. Like what I've learned, Gary, is like, I want to connect with people the way I did. These are all people I knew before, but afterwards they knew me in a way that I felt like, okay, now they see me. And there's a big difference between that. I think
it's liberating, isn't it?
Yeah, it was just like, I just, for the rest of my life, I decided and this was only like 7 years ago, 8 years ago. I just wanted to always share that and be just 100%. Yeah, because somebody said once, they said the freest person in the room is the one who has no secret.
But I want to make an observation about that. So, I mean, I commend you on sharing that story because that's not an easy thing to do. However, and I'm not saying it's any easier, but providing that context as a comparison to where you are now or where you were 7 years ago when you first debuted that story, that's like, I think that contrast in the Dan of 7 years ago and the Dan of whatever it was, 25 years ago, I think that's the story. Like, and that's the value, right? Like understanding that pivot and how you did that to me, that's the most fascinating thing, because it's no secret that in society, everyone looks at that story, that, rags to riches, that going from such a low point to such a high point. But to pull it off, there's only, we feel that everyone's doing it because the ones in the media are saying, look, this is what we've done, but they don't know about
the millions that
have tried and are failed. Yeah. So I want to increase that ratio. And I think like what I'm trying to do with this podcast is I want to increase that ratio. Like I don't want it to be a fraction of people who get out of that and do great things like you've done. I want to see more people doing it. So tell me how. Like, how did you? First of all, tell me about maybe some context around this time in jail and the addiction.
And I love that about you, Gary. Is the movement you're creating around helping more people is just. I think that's what we're all here to do. It's just some people don't admit to it. So I love what you're doing with the podcast. Yeah, I grew up I'm second. I remember when we were talking about your boys earlier. I said, which one's the wildest? I was second oldest.
So you were the wildest.
I was the wild one, the black sheep. Yeah. But I grew up in a household with an alcoholic mom and a dad that was in sales, traveling all the time, hardly home, and got diagnosed with ADHD when I was like 11. I got put on Ritalin.
Oh wow!
And I just had like my personal self-worth was broken. Like I thought when they started giving me these pills that Dan's different, and like I got in trouble at school and kicked out of my class, and then my life was just always tough. Like I was branded as the bad kid. You know what I mean? Like even the neighborhood kids weren't allowed to hang out with me. I have to hide in the woods for them to like play with me. So it was tough. I got taken out of my home when I was 12 due to my anger issues. I used to get really angry, like see red, like just can't even remember. I've done so much therapy since then that I can like remember that, but this was how old?
Would that
Well, 11, 12.
at 11, 12, you had
Yeah,
the English?
10, 11, 12 got diagnosed. That's where I got like therapists came into the mix. Oh, let's do Dan tests. Okay, he's got ADHD. Let's give him medication. Let's keep him doing this.
You think the meds maybe?
No, I think the meds helped. I just didn't want to take them because I didn't like it.
Right.
It made me not Dan.
Right.
Dan is Dan. I'm who I am. You take Adderall, Vyvanse, whatever. It's just like you're just a different person, right?
Yeah.
And I mean, and for some people they need it because they just cannot be productive. Like I get it. But got taken out of my home. First time got put in a crisis center. So like woke up at 12 years old in a house with adults watching me. Like
Where were your folks?
they were home. They just they called the police because they couldn't handle me.
Wow.
Dude, I was wild. Like I'm embarrassed to say some of the stuff that I did in my home, but
you shouldn't be.
well, I'm not. It was intense. It's like, my dad is my hero today, and I talk to my mom every week, and but it's fascinating to watch what we went through as a family.
And how many siblings do you have?
Well, I got 3 others, 2 brothers and a sister.
Okay.
Yeah, and we were all kind of crazy. I was just the craziest. But things turned for the worst. I ended up in foster care, so crisis center, foster care, group home. So I was gone for almost 2 years. Got eventually therapy, family, blah, 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 brought back to my home. Then my parents got divorced. And that was like the beginning of the major downfall, this negative spiral, I call it. And I got introduced to drugs. And I was always somebody that if I liked doing something, I went all in.
Yeah.
And I went quickly from just doing it to selling it to hanging out with people twice my age. And I ended up in juvenile detention the first time when I was 15 for selling. Got out. I remember I spent 7 weeks over a summer. They sentenced me over the summer. And judge, I was so upset. He's like, do good in school. And then I did good. And then he's like, you're going to jail all summer. I was like, this is crazy. Anyways, I got out, said I was going to change my life. I lasted less than 10 hours. Back with the same group, doing the stuff I know I should have been doing. And it just got worse. I think if you've ever quit drinking or doing drugs or whatever, sober October, whatever they call it, and you do it again, you kind of know better. So I knew better, and I knew I shouldn't be hanging out with these people. And now my parents are separated. My mom let me do anything. I mean, my mom, beautiful human today, but man, she struggles with some demons. She just, and eventually my brother called me up and he said, don't come home. Police are waiting for you. I'm like 16.
This is really like a second offense kind of thing?
Yeah. Well, my mom had found some guns under the bed. We essentially did a break and enter, stole a bunch of guns.
You stole a bunch of guns?
Yeah. There was a group of us, but they were obviously at my house. So, and we were growing weed. Like, so silly.
This is wild, man.
Dude.
When I was reading about you and I heard about the jail time,
yeah,
I was like,
yeah, I missed the
I thought it was just whatever, but no, please continue.
No, we're talking like Hell's Angels full on.
You were a gangster. That's what it sounds.
Yeah.
You're like a teenage gangster.
Yeah, I guess.
All right.
But
you know what, Dan? Sorry. Look, when we're talking about this, like when you watch a movie, when you watch like a biography of somebody super famous or super accomplished, then you see the struggles that they're going through in the movie, like these epic tales, but you're always watching it with almost like you're half smiling because you know how the story ends, as opposed to fiction, right? So we know how the story ends with you, and like you're sitting here and you've done the things that you've done. So when I'm hearing the story, I don't want you to misinterpret my reactions.
No.
Or, but like you're here.
It's crazy.
To me, I'm hearing this and this is positive because to go from that to this.
Dude, I told you I want to give you stuff that I haven't shared before.
Yeah, this is great.
So my mom, and look, my mom was also the mom that used to give us, $20 allowance and ask us if we wanted a pack of cigarettes and a bottle of 5-star whiskey. Like that was.
Okay.
So it was kind of weird that she called the cops, but I get it. But I was upset with her at the time, obviously. Sure. And so my brother says, don't come home. I'm at my friend's house. And he says to meet up with me. And he gives me the last like $63.50 on his bank account.
Big brother. Your little brother.
Little. We didn't even get along that much, And it just meant a lot to me. And he said, you can't stay here. You got to go. And I ended up stealing a car, I grew up in the East Coast, Canada. I was going to go to Quebec. I didn't know how to get to Quebec. It's just I'm a kid driving a stolen car. I don't have a driver's license. And I was driving and took an exit to get some gas, and there's a routine roadblock. Checking insurance and driver's license. And
16?
Yeah, 16, 15, 16, probably. Yeah, 16.
Okay.
And pull over, told the cops it was my mom's car, blah, blah, blah. I didn't have my driver's license on me. They said, no problem, pull over to the side, and I just gunned it. And I was wasted, like just.
On top of that.
Oh, gone. So I kind of remember it, but I like took off and didn't know what I was going to do. I had a handgun in a backpack sitting next to me.
Yeah, the story's progressing. Okay, yeah.
And before I sold the car, I told myself that if the cops saw me, I'm going to pull the gun and let them take my life. I didn't want to go back to prison. And I ended up in a neighborhood, and I saw an open garage door and thought maybe I had a bit of distance in front of the cops from what I remember. And I pull into the driveway and was going way too fast. And I ended up smashing into the side of the garage, and car comes to like a freaking halt, and airbag goes off, and not wearing a seatbelt, like just a mess. And I go for the gun.
You went for because the cops were right behind you?
They were coming. And I found it, and I was pulling on it, and it got stuck, the bag and the gun, between the seats. And I kept pulling on it and pulling on it. I was going to point the gun and let the cops take my life. So felt like a long time. It was probably a few seconds. And next thing you know, the cops opened the door, and essentially they grabbed me and throw me across the freaking, they didn't throw me. They literally, I floated across the front yard, and they threw me in the back of the cop car after they searched me. And that was that.
You ever think back to the fact that you could have died that day?
All the time.
How does it make you feel about your life now? Do you appreciate being alive?
Yeah, I just think of my kids.
Yeah.
Think of my boys.
That they would never have existed.
No, none of it. I just, and this is the thing, is like, it took me a long time to understand why. Why did I get this chance? And I knew, like the next morning I woke up sober, and I gave my life to God in that moment. I said, I don't know if I believe in it. Like, I remember I was like, I don't know if you're real. I just need some help. I'm willing to be a good person. And, you know, it took a while. I ended up, you know, before I went to court and stuff, I ended up getting sentenced almost 2 years.
Have you ever told this story? Does anybody know this? You've told this on stage, right?
I have, in different parts, not like this.
Yeah. Are you Dan, are you a religious man now?
Very religious. Yeah, very much.
Yeah.
But that's been an evolution. I think, like most people that have faith, it's an evolution.
Yeah.
I would say in the last 6 years, it's been really like a cornerstone of my life.
Yeah.
Prior to that, I didn't understand it.
Tell me, okay, I'm trying to unpack this, but I want to hear more of the story. So you know, I'm assuming you quickly got put away.
Yeah. I ended up in an adult prison.
In an adult prison?
Yeah, it's called St. John Regional Correctional Center.
Why did they put you in an adult prison at the
Because they had 2 cell blocks dedicated to addiction. It was like a trial program. I don't know why they did it there. I mean, I was a teenager at the time, but I told them I need help. And there was a program called Portage that a lot of kids went to at the time. But, you know, I think they felt like I was just doing that to try to get away from going to jail. So they said, if you're serious about it, go to this place, prove yourself, and we'll reevaluate. So I ended up doing almost 6 months, and I almost ended up not getting out. There was a guard named Brian. What happened one day is I was there probably 3 months doing my stuff, GED, staying out of the prison politics. I mean, most people don't realize when you go to jail, juvenile correction, like, it's hard to not. You can't, it's not like I'm going to stay away from everybody else. That's not how it works. You're there with them. I remember the first time I went to this juvenile correction center, like, you're sleeping in open bunks, and the other people that have been there for years, like some kids have been there since they were 13. Okay. They're 16. They would threaten to smash you in the face with a pool ball and a sock while you're sleeping.
Why?
Just 'cause. So try to sleep. Like, people don't understand, like, the emotional impact of these experiences, like, that I went through, from being strip searched to, you know, being thrown in the hole. Like, these are, like, it was.
How long were you in for?
First time I went for 7 weeks. Second time I was there for almost 5 months, 6 months. And what happened was three months in, stay out of the trouble, whatever. This kid named Kirk, I don't know if you grew up with these friggin' teenage phenoms. He had like an 8-pack, just like Mr. Muscle kid. He wasn't tall, but he's just like, he was like a muscle. Okay.
Yeah.
I'm like, how do you look like that? I was a lot chubbier back then. And I drank the rest of the coffee, and he goes to grab the pot, pours it, and there's no coffee left. And he goes, who's the goof that drank the coffee? And I was like, oh man. So I knew everybody saw me do it. So I get up in his face and I said, I did. What are you going to do about it? Well, fight goes off and the friggin' guards rush the unit, grab us all, because they would let us out for meals. Like we'd be locked up and then out for meals. And they threw us in the hole. And I was there 3 days.
By yourself?
Yeah. And I'm talking in my underwear, locked down for 23 and a half hours a day, only let out in this like 10 by 10 area with a 30-foot wall screen, and they don't tell you how long you're going to be in there, and just sitting there staring at like the stainless steel toilet and sink, wondering what's my life going to look like.
I mean, you were essentially still a child.
Oh, it's 100% a kid,
I guess. So I have a question about that process in general. Have you ever speculated as to why they would do that? Because I can't imagine if they're trying to rehabilitate the human being, why would they do such?
It's just the way they punish. I mean, I think every place is going to be managed by the leader. So I never got to meet the warden or whatever. But I think it's just their way of saying, like, if you cause issues for us, this is what happens. And, but it was emotional torture. I mean, the other adults, because I'm in there with other adults, they're rocking the cell. So rocking the cell is they sit on their back and they smash the steel door with their feet for hours. Okay?
Sorry, why?
To annoy the guards. Some of them did it so much, it bent the door, and eventually 8 guards have to get suited up and come in. And
these are adult inmates.
Yes, that are in other cells in the hole.
So they had... Well, you said you were an adult.
I was in an adult prison with the juvenile section. So it's all the same area. But we're in our own cells. In the hole, you're in your own cell. But I'm still listening and hearing the adults. See, this is a part that really messed with me, is I could see what my future was going to look like if I didn't change. Because I would meet these other kids.
You'd see the adults that were...
Not even the adults, the other kids. There was this kid that when I went to the first juvenile correction, he was in there for 3 or 4 years already. Like, full time. Like, they let him out and he'd be back the next day. So they just kept him there. And I was like, holy crap. And you just see, you could see in their eyes, there's something broken, right? And so I'm on the 3rd day, locked down, and the door opens and there's this guard named Brian. And he's just staring there in disappointment. Like his face is just that. And he was one of those guards that he would look the other way if you were doing good. If you want an extra dessert, as long as you didn't do anything wrong, take an extra dessert. Like he was one of the few guards that the other inmates respected because he was fair.
Yeah.
And the look of disappointment just ate at me because he just couldn't understand, what did you do, Dan? Because he would talk to me about doing my homework, working on my GED, staying out of the other stuff.
This was because he saw you the second time back there.
No, he wasn't. I went to 2 different places. This was just the guard. He'd worked there the whole time. I was there for probably 3 months when I got in the fight and thrown in the hole. And so he opens the door. He sees me. He was on vacation when the fight happened.
Got it. Oh, I see. Okay.
Yeah, he comes back.
Yeah.
Opens the door, look of disappointment, and then he just says, follow me. So he gives me my clothes, get dressed, follow him. And we're walking back to the cell block. And we go past the door. Okay? And you don't walk past. There's a path to go to the cafeteria and to the gym and that.
Wow, okay.
And we go past the door to the next door, which is the guard unit. And he opens it up and he says, come on in. Now, no inmates are allowed in the guard unit. So he asked me to sit in the corner. This is the inside of the one-way mirror. So I'd never seen the inside.
Guard side.
It looks over both cell blocks. There's 2 cell blocks, 12 units each. And it's the inside of the mirror. There's a wall normally. I didn't know that the other one looked inside the other cell block, right? It's at the end of a hallway. And he sits me in the corner, and he pulls up the chair, and he looks at me in the eyes. And he says, what are you doing here, Dan? And I remember just saying like, well, I got in a fight with Kurt, and, you know, he goes, not that. He goes, what are you doing here? And I was like, well, I don't know. I stole drugs and got a high-speed chase and had the guns. And he goes, no, Dan. He goes, what are you doing here? And I said, what do you mean? He goes, I've watched you stay out of trouble. I've seen you do your best. Like, I've been here for 10 years. I've seen hundreds of kids. I don't understand why you are in this place. And he said, you don't belong here.
Did you feel that you don't belong here? Did you feel that you were out of place in this institution?
I felt so low that I just didn't know. But there was something about the way he said it and he looked at me, Gary, that just made me realize this is the logic. He has no reason to do this. He would get in trouble if they found out he pulled me aside. He's seen a ton of other kids come and go. And he's telling me this. Maybe there's something. And it just like a seed of possibility, a little micro mustard seed. And I just kept thinking about it. And I'll tell you that one moment shifted my whole life. Like everything. Like I got out of there, maybe 6 weeks later, I got released to a rehab center, and it wasn't an easy road. Gary, I fought for every inch. I got in trouble. I almost got kicked out. I was there for 11 months. Okay, most people do 6 months. I did 11 months. I had some real demons to work on. And like there was these incredible other people, like this beautiful place called Portage. It's run by other inmates. So other drug addicts. So what's cool about it is you don't got some guy that went to university that read the textbook teaching you how to get sober. You're literally talking to George from Montreal, Quebec, did time with the mafia, spent 16 years in a Mexican prison. Like, you want me to tell you about your future if you keep this up? I needed that. And what's crazy is after 11 months of doing the work and, you know, having these people speak into me and my truth and doing the emotional work and rebuilding the trust I lost with my family, I'm helping this guy, Rick. Like, dude, it doesn't even make sense. I'm going to tell you, and like, luckily it exists and we've documented the whole thing because it doesn't make sense to me. So the rehab center was built at an old church camp. There was a camp on site, and we never went in it. And Rick, the maintenance guy, I was working with him. Like towards the end, I got released and I was doing work with Rick. And we're cleaning out one of the cabins, one of the rooms in the cabins. And in this room, there's this old computer. Back then, a 486 computer, and next to it, a yellow book on Java programming, a Ziff Davis book. And I open up that book, and it just speaks to me. I don't know why. I just thought computer program. I never had a computer. I thought it was like ones and zeros or freaking magic code. Like I never seen computer code, and yet it reads like English. If this, then that, case, like all these things. I don't know. I just started the computer up and followed the instructions, chapter 1. 20 minutes later, I get the computer to say, hello world. That became my new addiction. I became obsessed. For years, all I did was write code. And that transformed everything.
Well, what made you believe, so when the guard was telling you, like, why are you here? And he was telling you that you're not the person to be in here. Your thought was like you hadn't contemplated whether you should be here or shouldn't be here. Like that thought didn't cross your mind. But now you've got a person who's not motivated by anything, telling you this, and that made you. And that was what changed the trajectory, where you had that one kind act by a stranger, essentially.
Yeah.
You then pick up this book about coding. You get on this old computer. You obviously get out. And now you're into coding.
Start building companies. Okay. I was always entrepreneurial.
That's a big jump.
I know, but this is crazy. My dad, if you talk to him, I talked to him the other day. I said, he laughed. He goes, you were always intense. You just were not doing anything productive.
Correct.
He used to plead with me. He goes, if you could just find something you're passionate about that isn't illegal, you do well with your life. It just took me a while.
Okay. Well, not that while. But
no, but it took me, a lot longer than my dad would have liked to.
Sure. How old were you when you started?
17.
So I think for parents, and because I want to touch upon parenting with you, but before we do, I mean, for parents, if we have, you and I have my two older boys are the same.
Yeah.
It's the same age as your boys.
In the same phase.
And, whatever our kids are kind of going through now, we, from your story, we shouldn't assume that one way or another, that's where they're going to end up. Like whatever, because I can list to you kind of the concerns I have about, individually about my kids. But it's nice to hear that it's not like a life sentence, meaning whatever the negatives are now and whatever, is going on now, it's not forever, because it's a matter of finding that, finding that those moments and finding the thing that interests you, that really, motivates you. But so you're now 17. Yeah. You're obviously out, everything. You're kind of, you're
sober.
You're sober.
Yeah.
You're rebuilding.
Yeah.
And then you kind of just made a statement, and then I started building companies. So how old were you when you set up your first company?
The first thing I ever sold, I was 17. It was
the first company you sold?
No. The first thing, because people say, when did you start entrepreneurship? Well, the first time somebody that I didn't know gave me money for something I built, I was an entrepreneur. Now, unfortunately, when I was younger, there was illegal stuff. But the first thing I ever built software-wise was a CD burning app. So check this out, Gary. I'm assuming we're similar age.
I'm old enough to know.
Okay, perfect. Yeah. So like back then, MP3s come out. People want to burn their own CDs. It's 120 songs, but they get to sit there and pick.
Yeah.
So I built an app that they could install on their home computer that would connect to my computer, pull all the songs that I downloaded off of Napster. This is not illegal, obviously. Yeah. And it would build the list, and then I could burn the CDs at night while I was sleeping. And that was $20. And that was the first thing I ever sold ever that I believe was like, okay, I built this thing, people paid me for it. And then, I just did a bunch of stuff like that. Like I would just build apps and sell stuff. So like I built a vacation rental site for my dad and ended up selling that to like, I don't know, like 100 and something.
You built a vacation rental?
I did. This is Maritime Vacation. Back in the day was VRBO before VRBO. It was an app that people could build a web page for their cottage.
Okay.
So my dad had a cottage and he was sick of answering the same question.
Yeah.
I just became addicted to creating. And what's beautiful is that journey of getting into entrepreneurship also forced me into personal development.
Now, the discipline of coding and creating applications like the one you're talking about, it's very different than the discipline of being an entrepreneur.
Yeah.
So I understood the story up until like when you started coding, and I get that, and I understand the inspiration behind that. Where did the entrepreneurial come from? Was your dad an entrepreneur? No, you said he was.
No, he wasn't. He wasn't. They had a fish and chip wagon when I was younger.
Well, that's an entrepreneur.
Yeah. My dad was like, it's funny because I learned business talk. Listen to my dad talk about business. Yeah. He worked at Westinghouse Siemens, like major companies as manager. But he always had like these side hustles. The cottage, he had one cottage. Mm-hmm. Eventually bought, I think, 3 with his brother, and then, he had another duplex. Like he was in it, but not like, I wouldn't call him an entrepreneur because our neighbor Wayne was an entrepreneur, and I would watch Wayne. But Wayne was one of those entrepreneurs that would like buy a motel and go bankrupt 16 times. Like Wayne was a funny cat, actually. But I think what happened was, it took me a while. It took me 2 failed companies. So I did Maritime Vacation for about 2 years. That thing got shut down.
That
got
failed.
beat. Yeah.
Okay.
Then I did a hosting company with my brother, right? I'm 19. I was like building these apps for people and
like a hosting, like a
web hosting. Yeah, like Amazon Web Services today. But back then I rented a server, installed all the software, and then
you did all the sales, marketing. You built.
My brother did the marketing and sales because he was more that. I was introverted back then, which is people don't get.
So you were in business with your brother.
Yeah.
Have you done business with him as an adult?
Yes and no. So that's a fun. So we did that one. It didn't work out. We each lost like 10 grand. And then it wasn't. This is actually full circle. It wasn't until I was 20. I started when I was 24. I finally found my stride in entrepreneurship. I hired a business coach, read the book E-Myth, and it transformed everything. And I made my first $1 million at 27. When I was 26 though, or 25, my peer, he was younger. He's about 18 months younger than me. He was a mechanic, and he was supposed to buy the shop he was working at. And he worked his butt off so much so the shop turned around. The guy that was supposed to sell it decides one day after he's been there for 4 years, I don't want to sell it.
Yeah.
So he calls me up and he goes, I need your help. And I said, what's that? He goes, I'm leaving. I don't want to. I said, well, you're going to buy a shop from somebody else? He goes, I don't want to be a mechanic. I was like, whoa, that's kind of crazy. You just college, 4 years,
Sure.
you know. So what do you want to do? He's like, real estate, I guess. And I was like, cool. What do you want to do? Like, I want to help you. Like, what do you want to do?
Yeah.
And Pierre and I, my brother, I wrote him a check for $173,000. All the money I had in my bank account.
All your money at the age of 26.
Because he gave me that $63.
Wow. How are your relationships with your brothers now?
He's my fucking best friend. My brother Pierre, he's my best friend. Yeah, even my other brother Mo and my sister. She's the non-entrepreneurial in the family. We're not allowed to talk about business when we go to her house, and I kind of love it. Like for a while, I was like, "This is stupid." Because that's all we talk about. I call my dad right now. I'd be like, "Dad, I have an issue with a VP of sales." He'll be like, "Let's talk about it." He loves it. He loves what I do. He asked me like, "Hey, that client that had this issue." I call my dad and make stuff up. I love listening to him. He gets so excited. No, for real though, because it used to bug me for a long time that my dad would always be like giving me advice and made me feel like an idiot. I don't know if parents will do that.
If they ever give advice to make you feel like an idiot?
The way they ask you questions makes you feel like you're still a teenager.
Well, I think that's probably never going to go away. I'm just hoping that...
Well, it's gotten to the point where I got good enough at it that I call him up and give him stuff to give me advice on that isn't always the truth because I just love it. Because I also know someday my dad's like...
I want to touch upon...
So we started that home building company.
The home building company. I want to continue on the entrepreneurial, like on this path, but you said something that I want to just kind of do a quick tangent, then I want to come back. You talked about your brother being your best friend.
Yeah.
You talked about the $63. You talked about the $173,000. Your response in regards to your brother is a very emotional response. I said he's your fucking best friend.
Yeah.
When it comes to parenting, one of the biggest things that brings me absolute sorrow and makes me probably the most, like the thing that makes me as unhappy as I can be at any given time is when my 10-year-old and 9-year-old are fighting. And I know like all kids will fight. And I have such a fear that this is going to be them as adults, that they won't get along. And I'm always preaching to them and I'm always saying, this is your best friend. This is the closest person to you. One day I will be dead and this is all you'll have is your brothers. You just made me feel a certain way when you talked about this, the situation with your brother. Your boys are each respectively a year older than my two older boys. I'm assuming they fight.
Oh, dude, they fight so much my wife was worried.
How do you reconcile that with yourself, with being as close with your brother as you are? How do you reconcile within yourself when your kids fight? Do you have a fear? Like, do you do what I do? Do you tell them, guys, you got to get along? Like, no. What do you do there?
You know what?
Sorry for the tangent.
No, I love it. I love this question, and I appreciate and understand actually where it comes from. My frame for it is individually. I ask them because I put them to bed every night, and I always kind of have a little talk with them before I walk out of the room. And if they have fought, I always ask them. I say, "Hey, bud, can I ask you a question?" Especially my oldest, Max. He's the one. My second oldest is a love bug.
I have a Max too, but my youngest is Max.
That's awesome. Yeah. But I'll ask his younger brother, and I said, "Do you love your brother?" And he goes, "Yeah." So he's good.
Yeah.
The other one goes, "Sometimes." So I know, because like if one of them's not around, the other one's asking, "Where is he?" Yeah. Like they actually, as much as they fight, and they do, I actually think you do fight with the people that you love the most. It's why for a lot of people, you're the people that know you the best sometimes get the worst version of you. That's an interesting concept, right?
Family, I find that over time, family, and eventually spouse, you take certain liberties with each other.
Well, that's why, because new people, you're like, yeah, I want to put my best foot forward. I don't want them to think I'm a psychopath. I get it, and sometimes the people closest to you are too close to see your greatness. And that's what bugs you.
Yeah.
So I guess because me and my brother did not talk and fought when we were younger, yeah. The little one, like he got bullied. Like we bullied my little brother. I've apologized to him several times. I've helped him with his companies. Like if he asks me for anything, the answer is yes, because of just karmic debt, right? Like I gotta pay it off a little bit.
Yeah.
But he was just, he's like 3 years younger than me and my brother. We'd have friends. We'd, tape him to the ceiling with duct tape. I mean, that's what how we grew up. And to see us today, like every 2 years we do this trip. It's coming up in a month in March. And where we bring me and my brother Pierre, the other home builders, financially, him and I, we've done well.
Yeah.
We cover the whole thing. We bring everybody together, one big house on the side of a mountain, and we ski for 7 days with all the kids, all the cousins hanging out. And it is the coolest thing that we do as our way of I think that every person has the potential to be their transcendent character in their family. The one that changes it for everybody else.
And that's you.
I didn't know that I was doing that. But as soon as I got sober and out of trouble with the law, all of a sudden Pierre stopped doing stuff with the law. Little brother gets out of you know what I mean? Like my sister gets healthy. Like I don't even know if they know. All I know is that I never preached. That was the one thing that I love about the place I went to, Portage. They said, be the lighthouse, not the tugboat. Be the example. If somebody's struggling, it's too often when you get out of addiction, there's this bad habit of wanting to go around screaming at everybody about, you got to clean up and you got to do this and you got to go to 12 steps. And they're like, look, just go take care of you.
Yeah.
Go get healthy and earn the right. And the cool part is their whole philosophy was, when they're ready, they will come to you. And if you work on you, when they come to you, you will have the resources to help them.
Does that, sorry to interrupt you, but does that also transcend into parenting? Are you the
100%, monkey see, monkey do. I post this all the time.
Yeah.
My son 2 nights ago, his thing is connection, is my oldest. So we're sitting down and he wanted to sit at the counter. Like we have a separate counter. He wanted just him and I have dinner. So we had dinner, finished up, talked about his day. And then he goes, you want to go work out downstairs? We have a gym.
Nice.
This is the first time he's 11. Hey, dude, what are we doing? Shoulders, arms, what do you want to do? Like, let's go.
I love it.
He's like, can we bring the dog? I'm like, yeah, the dog will come. The dog's never allowed downstairs, right? So we go down, we work out, and I'm just like laughing because this is how it is. Kids will not listen to what you tell them to do. They will watch what you do and decide to do that. It's just, it's so funny how we think any other way. I don't remember what my parents told me to do. I just remember what they did. And guess what? That's what I did.
My kids, especially my eldest, he's got this like crazy addiction to technology.
Yeah.
And
screen addiction.
Screen addiction is very real. But he's also, and you're actually making me feel much better about it because he just loves tech and building tech stuff.
And I let them. So my oldest is into editing videos.
Yeah.
He has a channel on YouTube. It's not his face. He edits Roblox videos and blah, blah, blah. And he's got thousands of followers. And again, because of my upbringing, what I think, and this is where I think education has an opportunity in some places do this well, is find the thing the kid is passionate about and then incorporate the education into the passion.
Yes.
So that's why, like, even Sam, who's here, he's the mentor, my videographer business partner.
Yeah.
He's the mentor to Max. Like, oftentimes, I mean, Sam knows, like, we're sitting there, he's like, can you call Sam and ask him how to get the voice from, I'm like, you call Sam. He's like, can I use your phone? I'm like, yeah. He takes the phone, finds Sam, calls him, hey, I'm working on CapCut. And I love that. So now, does that mean he's allowed to spend 18 hours on his iPad? No.
That's the problem. No. But I found for me, it's like, I'm always telling them, like, you've got a certain amount of time you can spend on the phone or or on the technology, iPads, whatever it is. But then I'm sitting on the damn thing the whole time. So, it's the be the lighthouse, not
totally.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, I mean, the other thing, Gary, is obviously we live an affluent lifestyle and we don't want to raise entitled kids. Okay, so we have help. I seen, you got help. Yeah. I got Betty's her name.
Sure.
And people are like, well, you don't do that. I go, when you're rich, because I am, you're not. Just so you know, and Shaq, I think Shaq's from here. Shaq said this. His kid was like talking about something. He goes, I'm rich, buddy. You're not. Yeah. Like there were several times, and Betty's incredible. She runs her whole life, that we've had to have family meetings and be like, Betty, you're no longer allowed to do these things for the boys. Like, we got to stop. And everybody's there, and we all make an agreement. We all shake on it. And now the backpacks, leave them there. The toilet doesn't get flushed, leave it. If I see it, the boys are going to go flush it. So it's fascinating how, like, we have to kind of change the level of communication and expectations around each other. But I mean, I don't have a problem with you being on your phone all the time because you're providing this environment.
Right. I always tell my kids when they tell me, hey, but Dad, but you do this. And I said, well, we're not the same.
No, if you want to start pitching in. It sounds like you want to start pitching anybody. Let's do it. Here, what percent do you think you consume of all this stuff?
Yeah.
And I'll give you the number, and you can go figure out how to make fun of it. You want a phone to make that work? Like that, to me, that's the, and again, the unfortunate part is I don't know if that's going to be the right decision. It's just mine.
We don't know.
No.
At the end of the day, it's funny because there's been so many billions of human beings, and we're all trying to figure. It's actually interesting. I have later today, and I don't usually do this. I have 2 podcasts today, and later today I have this wonderful woman who is like a child expert. She does this conscious parenting thing.
Cool.
And I'll send you. Her name is Jenny Luther.
Okay.
And she's actually works as a contractor at the school where my kids go, and they hire her to do seminars to teach us parents how to be just better parents and not go ballistic on our kids when they, will inevitably misbehave. So no, I completely, get what you're saying. And I think that's parenting is by far the most challenging thing I've ever done. I talk about the business, social media.
That's my children. I worked with a guy, Peter Crone, as a coach, and he has this quote that I love. It said, "The world will show you through people and circumstances where you are not free. Your children will be a mirror for all of it."
Yeah.
And I think that is the ultimate gift, that they literally act as a mirror to show you where you have a deficit, where you're inconsistent, where, you know what I mean? Maybe them saying that stuff is you, just re-acknowledging what you know. It's fascinating that I think kids are just they get to you in a way. I know for my wife, she says it's biologically speaking, it when she hears them fighting, it turns her inside.
Oh, I'm the same way.
I don't get that way.
Really?
I don't. I actually have I don't allow for physical violence. So if there's a punch, that I have a problem with.
Yeah.
But them being in dispute, I'll let them at it, man.
I have to admit something to you. I once spanked my kid.
Oh.
When I say spanked, I mean it was 3 taps on his butt.
Yeah.
It wasn't if you actually saw it, it would be a very masculine little, so it wasn't I don't want you to think I beat my kid.
You didn't punch him right in the face?
No, but I smacked his butt several times. He must have been maybe 6, and I saw him pull his brother's hair, his 5-year-old brother's hair, so hard, I thought it was going to get yanked out of his head and blood would squirt out.
Yeah.
It was so, and it was a reaction where I just grabbed him and
he just showed you where you're not free.
And I was just wow. And I couldn't even believe I did that. But anyways, that's
no. But I'll be honest with you. I did it once with my littlest. Okay, and I don't even know what he did, but it just got to the point where I dude, I'm gonna make your butt warm if you don't stop. But it's so funny. I remember my wife and I were there, and I pulled down his pants, and it's the cutest little butt.
Sure.
And I was like, "Oh, you little, I'm gonna get you." But then, I hit him once, and I felt so bad.
Yeah.
But I mean, this is the thing: is I think from a personal development point of view, any person that makes you feel that way, it's a gift. It's actually ooh, wow, that's it. I try to go curious, right?
Mm-hmm.
Ooh, that's interesting. What is it about that comment from that person that's making me feel that way?
Yeah.
Right? Because I was at a seminar once, and the guy was, and I use this with my kids, you might appreciate this, is, if you know something's not true about you, that's like me looking at you and say, you've got purple eyes.
Mm-hmm.
And you're like, well, I don't have purple eyes. It's like, dude, you got purple eyes. You'd be like, that's cool. I don't. So obviously you're crazy. So if somebody says something to you that gets you upset, if it really doesn't get you upset, then just pretend they said you got purple eyes. I tell my boys, now they run around saying, you got purple eyes. And I'm like, dude, stop it. I know what you really want to say. But it's an interesting feedback mechanism for us to go oh, there's something there. I don't know what it is. Is it my shadow self? Where is my opportunity to grow from that?
Yeah. So I want to get back to the entrepreneurial journey. So you've done something that very few entrepreneurs can claim that they've done. Within a decade, you've sold 3 companies, and they're all SaaS companies. So I'm quite familiar with the SaaS model. I'm familiar with MRR, ARR. I'm familiar. What's that?
It's my favorite.
Yeah,
language.
for sure.
Using my love language.
I'm very familiar with multiples.
Yeah.
It's funny. I'll tell you a story. I was my best friend from childhood, my closest friend. He started a SaaS company. And he early on, I had multiple times I could invest in it. And I looked at it and I was like, I don't get it. I don't get it.
Yeah.
Just because I've always been doing traditional businesses with traditional balance sheets. And I just looked at it and I'm just like, you're not profitable. You're doing it's a relatively small amount of revenue per month, and you're burning capital every month. And and what valuation do you want? I was just like, come on. It's like, I love you, but you're nuts. Like, no. And eventually he sold that company, and he did extremely well. And I'm super happy and proud of him. But you must have you have to have a certain suspension of like disbelief in that model and that financial model. I know multiples have come down now just with the rest of the market.
Yeah.
But I guess my question to you is, like, how did you identify and even believe in these multiples that, because it sounds to me like if you exited 3 companies within a decade, you were building them to sell. You were building them for enterprise value.
So what's interesting is I would say the first one I didn't build to sell. I got lucky that I worked with a coach, as I mentioned, an E-Myth coach, and he taught me how to build the business so you could sell it. Turns out that's a great company to own. So
once a SaaS company is at scale,
yeah,
and you've
just even building a company so you could sell it is a great company to own. Like everybody that has a business should build it to sell it, even if they never want to sell it, because in doing that work, you actually get freedom. So I got lucky that working with my coach, we set it up with the systems, the processes, et cetera, a lot of stuff I talk about in my book. And then that made it valuable as an acquirer because, yes, the business has to be profitable. And I bootstrapped that. So we were profitable from very early. We did customer financing. That's just my style. And
sorry, customer financing, meaning you financed.
We pre-sold the software. What a crazy idea.
You pre-sold the software?
Yes, we sold the licenses and then delivered.
Sorry, I just have to ask, what industry was that?
Enterprise portals, big companies, Fortune 500 companies. Yeah, it's kind of crazy. It's 24 selling the Procter & Gamble.
What was this? What did the software do for these Fortune 500s? I mean, it did nothing because it didn't exist because you pre-sold it.
Yeah, so it's like today we just call it like the intranet. You know, like the homepage for the website when you open up inside of big companies. So we built this thing that was like custom homepages for corporations. It's called portal software. So now it would be Microsoft SharePoint or IBM WebSphere. Or I don't even know. This is so long ago, but like it was a custom personalized homepage for big companies.
Okay.
And we built these things called portlets, and you could like integrate the finance system, the HR system, and every person had a custom view. When they open up their browser, there was a default page. We knew who they were, and we would log them in to all their different systems and pull it together. That was what we did. So we would pre-sell the integration with SAP, like all these enterprise software.
How? That just sounds like a fantasy.
I know this is it's so I'll tell you the story. It's just so crazy.
No, but you understand from my perspective. You're walking in with nothing.
Yeah.
And you're getting
you just sell them with the pictures. You just wireframes.
No, I understand. So you made wireframes.
Yeah.
And they cut you checks.
Yeah, hundreds of thousands of dollars. Yeah, because like. And see, most companies, like, have you ever hired a consultant to come in and do something technically for you, like custom software or anything? Okay. Well, before they did that for you, they showed you what it's gonna look like. Many times, if they're showing you software,
there's a vital difference in this scenario. Yeah. You're talking about me going to find someone because I know I have a need.
Yeah.
So not only did you sell this, hold on. Not only did you sell this software that based on something that didn't exist yet, but you created a need based on you reaching out to going outbound to them and creating a need at 24 years of age. Okay, so Dan, like this is some wizardry.
It's not. Once I tell you how I did it.
Yeah, I want to know how you did it.
The way I did it, it's a fun story. My one of my mentors once said to me, he goes, if you want to sell something to somebody, you got to find the path to identify when they have the pain. That was what he said. You got to find the path to identify when they have the pain. If I want to sell lawn care, I need to figure out when.
Thinking about lawn care because my landscape is ready.
There you go.
Yeah, okay.
When would a homeowner have the pain? Well, it's when their grass is the longest. So if I wanted to, I would drive around and find people with long grass and approach those homes because obviously they don't have a provider. Yeah. That's the concept he explained to me. And he said, I don't know what it is for you selling this enterprise software, but you got to figure out what is true about the company, what characteristics are true about them before they have a need. And it took me a while to figure this out. And then I thought, well, they probably put a job posting to hire somebody with a certain background to help them make the decision. So I made a bunch of fake resumes. They were everything portal. Like I had the architect, the senior engineer, the internal, like anything that looked like intranet. I made these fake resumes. So then what would happen is these big companies would be like, okay, we need to invest in an intranet or a portal.
So, and by an intranet, just for the uninitiated, this is an internal
homepage of the browser at your big company.
Internal.
Not, there's the web and then there's internet, intranet.
I understand. Okay.
Yeah, and then the intranet back in the early days was just a static page. It was like static links. This was the new version of that, which was like a personalized intranet. So what I thought is, well, before a company makes those big decisions, they hire somebody to help them make those decisions. So I made these fake resumes and had them all over the job sites, and their recruiters would call. But there were different names, but the phone number was my phone number. So when they'd be calling for Gary, I knew, oh, that's the portal architect. And I go, oh, Gary's on vacation.
But I identified the need through, wow.
That's
genius.
But I didn't know it was genius. My mentor says, hey, find the pain, the path, and like.
How did you figure that out?
How did
you figure out to create these fake resumes to identify people?
I think I talked to my dad. My dad had hired some consultants. And I said, well, what made you guys realize you needed some help? They're like, well, it was in like quarterly planning, and then the budgets got approved, and we hired this guy. And I was like, oh, they hired a guy.
That's wild. Like that's
how my brain works. I'm always like, I'm trying to reverse engineer. Like, if this is the thing I want to have happen, what happens before that thing happens? And how do I insert myself? That's actually one of my strengths, is like figuring out distribution channels. That's what when people talk about growth hacking, I don't think they actually know what it means. What I do is growth hack, right? Like, I'm like, what's true about my ideal customer profile? When do they make the decision? There's a framework called jobs to be done. And it's that concept of what job does the person need done, and when did they actually make the decision, and how do you insert yourself at the right time?
Pushback? Do you ever get pushback from your team? Like when you want to do these unorthodox, sorry, one sec.
Growth hacks?
Yeah. When you want to do these unorthodox things that are outside of like your current workflows in your company, do you have your senior people coming to you and say, hey, or your co-founder who's got, arguably as much authority as you do.
Yeah.
When that person, when you say, hey, I want to do okay, so let's say you were running your business and you wanted to do this thing that you just described to me with these fake resumes, and you said this to your, let's say if you had a CEO or a COO or your co-founder or whoever it is, and they're just like, Dan, we can't do this because, as employees of a company, people, and I like this about them, they speak up. Yeah. They're not just going to take the founder's direction at face value just because he's the founder and signs their checks. Yeah. And rightfully so, because they're hired to push back and provide that value. So when you get that pushback, sorry, but I just wipe it on the couch. So when you get that pushback, I got to get coasters, my next investment. When you get that pushback from your team, how do you handle that when you want to do these growth hacks?
Experiments. So we do it all the time. Like the other day we were talking about this crazy experiment we want to run. I'll tell you my favorite story of this is me and my co-founder Ethan. We were building a company called Flowtown, and we had pivoted. We actually got shut down. Like we were like 50,000 customers, rocket ship about to raise our Series A, and Facebook changed something in their terms of service that caused our whole data platform to essentially go to zero.
I've been down that path with Facebook. Yeah.
And that's why like today I don't build companies on top of other people's crap. Personally, don't like that. And so anyways, we pivoted and there was a decision. Do we go agency as a customer or SMB? Small business.
Yeah, small, medium-sized business.
And he wanted to go small. I wanted to go enterprise. I like enterprise. They write bigger checks. They're not too big, like deer hunting versus elephant hunting. Like deers are great. He wanted to go rabbit hunting, right? Problem is like $50 a month for what we were doing. We built this kind of gift marketing platform.
Yeah.
It would have took too long to get to revenue to replace the revenue we had lost.
Yeah.
And headbutt.
Yeah.
And I go, cool, we're going to run a three-week cycle test. And that's how we do it. Every time I run into this, I always say, let's time box it, resource box it, and results. Okay. So we're running an experiment, no different than the scientific process. And we each gave ourselves, he ran his, I ran mine. We set the parameters.
Yeah.
And at the end of it, it was black and white. Dan won.
Data.
But yeah, it's just like, what was the sales motion? How do people have the need? Are they willing to pay what you assume they're going to pay? Can you get 10 customers? And whoever could prove that, that's the path we're going to go. But the cool part is when you work with great people and it's a disagree and commit. It's we disagree, let's run the experiment. But then once we commit, there was never a question if he was on board with me. It wasn't like he was trying to like sabotage me after the fact. But I do this all the time because the ideas inherently have to be not known by other people. Like a growth hack's only a growth hack if nobody else is doing it. If everybody else is doing it, it's called marketing. So people are like, I'm growth hacking. No, you're not. You're doing marketing. You're doing demand marketing. You're doing paid marketing. You're doing metric-based marketing. Like it's called basic marketing. A growth hack is some kind of weird distribution strategy that other people aren't using that's going to give you an unfair advantage until everybody knows about it. Then it's not an unfair advantage, but by that time you've built a moat.
I want to talk about your book, and I want to talk specifically about, and I haven't read it. I haven't, admittedly, because this kind of
the whole book's in the title.
The whole yeah.
And you seem really good at that.
Yeah, well, it's this. I try to read people's books before I have them on the podcast.
Yeah,
but I have a lot. It's a lot of reading.
Yeah.
And you and I only committed to this like in a relatively short time ago. But I will read it. You have my commitment, and I will follow up with you and let you know.
I'd love that.
Kind of,
I think you'll really
and give you some questions. But I have a question, because the claim that you make in this book is that you are teaching people how to manage their time in such a way that they are doing the things that they enjoy. And by doing, and correct me if I'm wrong, by doing the things that they enjoy, they're essentially more motivated and stimulated, and they're happier as business owners in order to grow the business, because they're not doing the drudgery, the things that they hate to do. It may not be drudgery for someone else. Like when you hire like an accounting team, if you don't like doing accounting, you got someone else doing it for you.
They play at the things that you work at.
But I guess my question to you is like, as an operator of a business, especially in the early stages of a business, and I know this will be in your book, but maybe like the Coles notes, like how do you buy back that time? How are you able to do the, because I wish all I could do was have
you love,
like do these podcasts and just talk to people like you and have a great time doing it. But I can't, because I got to do a whole bunch of other stuff too. Legal, compliance, accounting, finance, admin. How do you do it?
And I love that question, because it's like the 4-hour work week, right? People will see the title and they're like, I want that. That's impossible. It's just like the movement I'm trying to create is I want to rid the world of entrepreneurs building companies they grow to hate. That. So I want to show people a different way to build a company that they don't grow to hate, because I actually think entrepreneurs that could be successful that shut down their businesses because it got to a place where it wasn't awesome. It wasn't because they couldn't have figured it out. They didn't figure it out. So rule number 1 is called the buyback rate. You don't earn the right to hire people to do stuff you don't want to do until you can afford to do it. And I give you the equation in the book so that you don't get ahead of yourself. Because that is honestly, like people that are like, I heard I'm going to hire an integrator. I don't want to run my company anymore. It's like, you don't make any money. You can't. Like, you didn't earn the right. So first off, you have to go create the skills that make you valuable and get paid by the market. That is an undisputable fact.
And yourself.
Yes, you have to develop your value to the point the market values it enough and you charge enough. When people run the buyback rate for a lot of entrepreneurs, they go, wow, my rate is $2. How am I supposed to hire anybody?
Define what a buyback rate is?
Yeah, the buyback rate essentially is you take your income that you make yourself, distributions, whatever. So a lot of freelancers, whatever they make, $100,000 a year, and then you divide it by the amount of hours in a year, which is on average is 2,000, and then you take a quarter of that. Okay, so if it's $100,000, I think the number works out to $50 an hour, and it's $12.50 is your buyback rate. So you're not allowed to spend more than $12.50 to buy an hour. That way, it holds you accountable. If you want that to be $25, then go create more wealth. Go increase it from $100,000 to $300,000. And if you follow that rhythm, it's impossible for you to end up growing unprofitably and unhappy. That's like I had to, because I've helped so many of my friends before I wrote the book. And the reason people, why'd you write the book? To buy back my time. Like to literally teach all the internal systems that I've used to scale and exit my companies, invest in 125. I mean, my empire is pretty awesome. Like we just closed on a company today. So
talk to me about your scale.
Right now, so I have $100 million that I'm deploying this year, buying 12 companies. Okay, so that's myself and my business partner Kevin. We just closed on one today. I was looking at the pipeline this morning, trying to make sure we're on a rhythm for one a month.
This is a fund, or this is your personal?
No, it's our own. It's a holdco. We said there's no fund. And so that's like a now thing. And then prior to that, I've been angel investing for 15 years. So I have 125 companies. I've, exited my companies. I run the largest SaaS company, the largest coaching organization. We'll do, I think 24 million this year. And then I've also got another media company and a coaching company on the back end of the book that it'll be probably bigger than the other company by the end of the year.
How many people do you employ altogether? Just like your direct, not the employees of the companies you've
invested in. Oh, a couple hundred probably at this point.
Where's everybody based?
Is it all over? I've always done distributed for every one of my companies, including my previous venture.
Always one sort
distributed. I never called it remote because I think some people think remote is like not full time.
Right.
These were always whatever WT T4 kind of.
Yeah.
And the media company, which is probably 12 now.
The media company is your personal brand.
Yes, but it's monetized through coaching, and the book is part of that company. And we're, I think, 12, and those are the first time I've ever had everybody in one location. So physically, they are in Kelowna, BC.
Right. Well, they have to be close to you.
No, I could have just the travel, fly. Yeah, I just decided for this company, I wanted to do something different. And why did this is why I wanted to do it, is because I wanted to document the whole thing. That's why it's called the studio. So the reason why we don't call it an office is, and everybody else wants to call it an office, and we have studio, and it's called Martell Studios, because when you come in there's a camera in your face.
Yeah.
And we're recording the whole thing.
You walked into my house.
Yep. I drove into the yard.
You drove in, coming out of the car with the camera on.
Always.
Great. Yeah,
always.
I love it.
So you mentioned the vlog. So Dan Martell Uncut is the vlog channel. We're still playing catch up. So those are old trips that we're catching up, but eventually you'll see the studio, my life. It's going to be in Kelowna. And that is what I've given myself essentially the rest of my life to do, and I'll never stop.
So I'm a big believer in this, and this is kind of like my wheelhouse as well because of what we've done with my wife's personal brand. And we have 18 full-time people.
Yeah.
Many of them are in Toronto because when we left Toronto, we didn't want to let our people go because we love them and they're talented. We work great with them. Some people physically need to be here, so we have 4 team members here, and then we've got the other 14 up there, and they do like post-production, monetization, and I actually have, and I like chatting with you about it because you'll understand this. I actually have a CEO running it.
Yeah. So I just hired a GM for my media company 2 weeks ago. Yeah. Started January 4th. We call him Single D. His name's Todd.
Okay.
1D to Todd.
Tied with 1D?
Yeah, and he just runs it. But I mean, that's the book. Buy back your time. Like, first thing I did was
that's the premise,
I'm going to hire somebody to run this. I don't want to do the one-on-ones, the quarterly planning, the rhythms, the finance, CHR.
And the thing is, I don't know, but those are all like important things. And I ultimately like Rachel, who's our CEO, and she does all of these things, and God bless her because I'm not a corporate CEO, and I never I have been in a company that I had 10 years ago, but I'm not anymore. But yeah, I'm a big believer in it, and I think you and I will agree on, and a lot of people won't who haven't been down this path, that for me to hire a CEO at the time when we had a 10-person organization, and for me not to do it, my wife thought I was a lunatic because this was 4 years ago, and I was trying to like juggle that with some other projects.
Yeah, dude.
And I was like, we got to hire a CEO. And we have to pay her CEO salary.
Yeah.
And my wife was like, no, you're mad. And I'm like, no, like, because it's an investment, because once this CEO once she actually creates the systems and does everything correctly, then we have a real opportunity to scale.
Yeah.
And the funny thing is since we hired her, we've probably quadrupled our business.
People don't realize that, like, that's why the premise of what I'm sharing, I know you got, because I can look around and get it. Like, people, you don't scale if you don't understand this. At the end of the day, and sometimes the thing we're best at becomes our number one Achilles heel to scale. That's what people don't understand. The marketing will be his Achilles heel. The product person is product. The leader that loves to be involved in the one-on-ones and the culture stuff, that's because it's the thing that they'll give away the least, like the last, they're most critical of. It's the thing that most people don't realize, that they are always going to be, the bottleneck is called the bottleneck because it's at the top. But if you can get to a place where, some people go, well, how do you own a company that you're the CEO, but you don't run the company? I go, if I bought a restaurant, I'm not going to be the restaurant. I'm not the chef. So like you conceptually, I think they get it. They go, if you bought a company and it had a team, you wouldn't want to jump in there. So why are you doing it there? They're like, oh, okay, yeah, you're right. It's like, yeah, exactly. Stop getting involved in these things and allow people to do the work. So that you can free up your time to be the talent. For me, I'm the talent. Sounds like your wife's the talent. It's like, you want to be the creative, the deal person. I remember talking to my brother, because he's one of the largest home builders, does multi-units, and he was still doing all the selling. I said, bro, like, you should be looking at raw land, development, like real doing deals, investors. That's force multiplying.
It's the macro, right? Like your head should be in the macro, where that's where I play as well. But I got to tell you that, the experience that I'm having with my wife. So you can imagine, like, I work with my wife, right? So
That's fascinating.
that's a whole
I've
other.
never figured that out.
Yeah, maybe you'll have me one day.
Maybe laughing because Ann works with my wife Sue's projects for us, but we can't make it.
Maybe one day you'll have me on your podcast and ask me how I do it. But no, it's look, it's definitely a challenge. But the thing that I'm always trying to teach her is, like, you gotta trust your team. You gotta delegate. So it's not only like when we talk about buying back your time, it's not only about, first of all, having the ability to find these people, having the ability to get them to trust you with their careers. A lot of people say, oh, you're paying a salary, so you're the boss and you're doing that. No, because Rachel's very qualified. She could have and still could go work somewhere else. She's trusting me with her career. And so I better make it really hospitable for her and make it really nice for her. But then with my wife, where she has the trouble and where it drops off is the delegating, because, this reminds me of a short video that I just saw that you did.
It's good.
That's what you're thinking, right?
Yeah, I know.
It completely reminds me of that, where it's like, I think in your case, it was like an assistant who didn't return a call.
Jumped into
24 hours.
No, it's
23
hours. Broken garage door. Yeah, so you get it.
So I get it. So, and I'm always trying to, to teach that. I actually forwarded my wife that video of yours, and I said,
change a life, Sam. Change a life.
I said, please, for the love of God,
watch this.
Listen to Dad.
To say.
And it's funny because then today, when she said, oh, who do you have coming over? And I said, Dan Martell. And she goes, yeah, that sounds really familiar. Dan Martell. I'm like, yeah, 3 days ago I sent you his video so you could delegate more.
I love that game.
Yeah. Okay, so I want to talk about comparison. It's another video that you recently made. So I want to tell you a story, and then I want to get your take on this. But I want to get your take on how to get out of this, because this is something that I suffer from as well, admittedly. So one day I was at a billionaire's house, which was, this was a while ago. This was about 10 years ago. I actually just had dinner with him the other day, but great guy, super wealthy. And back then he had this like sprawling estate, and I was at his house and he was having a party. But I was talking about sprawling estate, like you can imagine what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
This,
Is it in Toronto?
This is in Toronto.
Yeah. I know what you're talking about.
Yeah. You know who I'm talking about?
No, where?
Oh, where?
Like the areas. I know those streets.
There's only one street.
And I know. Yeah. Yeah.
And so, he's got a security tower in the front. He's got the whole nine yards. And I'm there with this other gentleman that I know. And we're walking around, and he's upset. And this guy's worth hundreds of millions of dollars. This guy is just like, he is the man. Like, he is like a very well-known, very successful Canadian entrepreneur. And he's walking around, and he's upset. I'm like, why are you so upset? And he said, I could have been a billionaire too, but I didn't. And I'm like, dude, you're worth hundreds of millions of dollars. You are worth hundreds of millions of dollars. What are you tripping about? He said, yeah, but I don't have this. And I'm like, I know, but, and I'm not worth hundreds of millions of dollars. Not yet, but I was just shocked at this. I was really shocked. And it's one of those like moments that get ingrained. You know how you have like a handful of like
the core memories.
Those core memories.
Yeah.
And this is one of my core memories. I remember it because the grounds were so perfectly manicured, and it was in the summer, and we were walking, and the flowers were blooming, and I was walking, and we were just strolling with this guy, and he was just so upset, and I was just like, "How are you sad, buddy?" So, what's your take on this comparison thing?
I think that people that use achievement as their barometer of happiness are plagued to ever be happy.
But do you think that's, with respect, that's kind of easy for you to say, considering the amount of success you have?
No, because I had to work through it myself.
Sure.
Yeah, everything I'm sharing today, I can tell you the 1,400 times that I wasn't doing this. At what age I learned it, and the fucking therapist I talked to about it. I mean, what I've discovered is a few things. One, when I'm giving to other people, I'm never in lack of. Like, just that concept in general. Anytime I'm here with you, giving to your audience, sharing my stories, I'm not hungry, I'm in flow state, I'm not thinking about less than, lack of, fear of, anxiety, anything. I'm here with you. Mm-hmm. And I think that, for me, anytime I start to have those feelings of comparison, I always go to give. That's just like my default, is like, instead of saying, what do I not have? I say, what more can I give? And that's a trigger I've created in my psychology. Two, what I've discovered is every person out there is dealing with their own stuff. A friend of mine said it recently. We were hiking, And I don't know where he heard it from, but he said, if everybody took their own shit and put it out on the table and you saw everybody's shit, you quickly grab yours back because you realize I don't want other people's shit.
Yeah.
So like, just there's these like mental models that I think people can adopt to go like, look, the billion, and guess what? You should be happy for the billionaire, okay? Because he showed up, he created value in the world, and like, because if we admire that, we should acquire that. And he's probably, if anything, I would say that was his way of talking to himself to say, I could be more. It's not that he was done either, right? Like, I'm assuming he's still breathing.
No, of course.
There you go. So like, if anything, I would have said like, hey dude, like, keep building. Like, I actually think every human on earth is here to expand to whatever their expansion is. And when you stop is when you start to feel this way. If he was on path and on journey, think about this. I share my plane or my car and people go like, oh, what are you going to make it about stuff? It's like, what are you talking about? It's like, it's a thing. Like, you have shoes. You know that like a big part of the world don't even have shoes. So are you making it about things? And they're like, well, no. And I go, well, this is what I've discovered. When I show wealth, I'm either going to irritate somebody or inspire them. Mm-hmm. There's only one of two options. I put my McLaren on the big screen, I'm speaking, and they go, you know, some people are like, ooh, Mr. Fancy Pants. I'm like, you know how long it took me to feel comfortable putting that up? I'm Canadian. Like, you know this. I was never braggadocious about anything I had. And then I realized it's because the people that are irritated are not on path, and the people that are inspired are on path. So your buddy wasn't on path. If he was on path to be a billionaire, he would admire and would have been excited for his buddy because he would have said, hey, now I have a new friend to be able to collaborate with so that I can get there faster. Yeah. And it's funny because I think that the people that compare and then their comparison hurts them is because they know that there's a gap of what they should be doing versus what they're doing.
That's really profound what you just said. Sorry, I apologize. I have to jump into that because I don't want to lose that. There is a gap between what they are doing and what they should be doing.
Yep.
And they know that.
Yep.
And a lot of it comes from distraction. A lot of it comes
They're addicted to distraction.
Laziness.
Yep.
You know,
inconsistency.
And you just hit the nail on the head. And I want my listeners to understand that this is the crux of it, right? Where whenever you're feeling lack, whenever you're feeling that, you know, you met someone who's doing a lot better and you have that negative feeling, you actually have to ask yourself, what are you not doing that you can be doing? There's a lot about, it's one thing when there are certain things like I can't like build a program to launch missiles. I can't do it. There's no way. I don't care how much time I'll spend doing it. I'm not going to be able to do it. But there are certain things that I can be doing, right? Like I would say I can get up earlier and start my day, but that's not the case. I wake up every day at 5. But what else am I not doing? Like, did I do cardio after the gym today? No, today I skipped on cardio because I was in a rush to get back, but I still did my sauna and my cold plunge. Did I, invest in, did I go to the bank and convert that X amount of dollars into
T-bill
into something that's giving me a 5% return? Yeah. Did I do that? Did I do that today? No. Do I keep procrastinating things? So that's a really important point, is to be actually executing on the things that you should.
The controllables. And this is why the easiest personal development program in the world is very simple. You wake up, you get quiet, and you ask yourself, what do I regret about yesterday?
Yeah.
And just don't do that today.
Dan, I want to switch gears a little. I want to talk about the companies that you invest in. How do you pick them?
I always look for the entrepreneur that's going to teach me stuff.
To teach you stuff?
Yes, that's my filter.
Wow.
Yeah. I want to know how nerdy did they go deep on the domain they're building in. Like, tell me. I want to know. I need to see the same passion I had for growing weed. I need to see that passion for building this new innovation. So what I've discovered is it's the team, and it's not even just the individual. I like to invest in teams, right? At least 2 co-founders. If you can't convince one other person about your crazy idea, I got an issue, right? So that's why,
if there's not partners,
I prefer 2. I will invest in 1, but I would say 70% of my deals, there's 2 people involved, right? And I'm looking for the person that can teach me stuff. I'm looking for the person that's got grit. Mm-hmm. Okay, I want to hear your stories of you not giving up. So when I met the founder of Postmate, and he told me that him and his family jumped on a boat and escaped the country they grew up in to free themselves to go to another place to eventually make it to the US for him to become a student, to go to Stanford. Dude's got grit, right? I need to find that person that's got the grit of never stopping. Because that's, at the end of the day, we all know this. It's not about making the right decision. It's about making the decision right. And sometimes the idea we start with, especially in innovation and technology, we're on this journey of discovery to try to figure out where's the there. Where is the dog gonna hunt? That's why you not investing in your friend might have been the right decision based on what he showed you at the time.
Right.
Because maybe the evolution of what it became finally was like, oh, well, if you would have told me you're doing that.
One thing is I don't have regrets about stuff like that because, I've also invested in stuff that's done 10x or 100x. Like, so I don't.
Or you did invest and you lost it. So it's like.
Right. It could have gone either way. So I'm fortunate to not have that regret. And I'm assuming that in the things that you invest in
there's a handful. I said no to Uber. And Travis was an investor in my company. I mean, I saw it happen. But I mean, in my defense, like, again, he didn't even want to be the CEO of the company when we started. He literally hired Ryan and said, Ryan, you be the GM.
Well, I know Vaynerchuk famously talks about the story.
He talks about it.
He lets Travis down.
So the tweet that Gary put out that was retweeting Travis, that was my buddy Ryan from Chicago. So like I was in the jam pad with Travis when UberCatTaxi.com was birthed.
Okay.
So yeah, I do have that little regret. That would have been a $50 million check. $25K.
That's okay.
Yeah. See, you're like, oh geez.
No, but you're okay. No. I wasn't thinking, oh geez. I was thinking everything happens for a reason.
Totally.
And I think that you took that lesson. That I wouldn't even call it a failure. You took that lesson.
It was a lesson.
But you capitalized on it because now your assessment of that deal and not taking it, I bet you've created so much enterprise value, whether or not it's in the form of cash yet. It's probably still in the form of stock, because of that experience.
You're 100% right.
Yeah. And that's happened to me. That's why I don't regret those deals that I lost, because those deals I didn't invest in, they've turned into a lot of either cash or stock, like equity in companies. I want to ask you, I want to finish up because I want to be respectful of your time. Talk to me about a personal brand, and talk to me about the importance of personal brand. You constantly put a lot of effort into your content. Your content is extremely professionally produced. I mean, again, this is my wheelhouse. This is where I play.
I appreciate
and I know. And when I see your long form, your short form, when I see the stuff that you're putting out, it's very intentional.
Thank you.
And you're growing your audiences at a great clip. You've got great engagement. You've got a truly engaged following. Like, your metrics are great across the board. Talk to me about personal brand and why.
Well, why is very simple. Everybody is on their phone. Like, everybody's on their phone. Like, people are going to kill themselves driving because they're paying attention to their phone. So for people to be in business and not realize people are on the phone and they're on social media, not watching TV. The other thing is, I realize that everything I've ever wanted is on the other side of reach and reputation. Everything.
The other side of
reach and reputation.
Okay.
Reputation means you have to have a good reputation.
Yes.
Reach means people need to know about you.
Yes.
If those two things are true, you will get an unfair advantage in the world. That's why Buffett gets the best deals, and it's literally there's different levels of luck. You will start attracting other people's luck into your world because of your reputation and reach. Like The Rock, Gary Vee, all the top people producing content have access to distribution. Is built in, Kylie Jenner. So it took me a while to get there, honestly, Gary. Like, it literally, I was on social media for 8 years. I was doing it, but I was doing enough just to say I was doing it. And the book comes out, and I realized I was playing small, and I had to be honest with myself. You want to talk about regret? Like, I should have worked out after the gym, cardio,
Yeah.
I was like, Dan, if you're serious about impact, you're serious about helping people, then where else is a better investment than in creating media and content? And that's when I called my business partner, Sam, today. He was on my media team at another company, and I said, let's create this thing and let's go all in. And this is the difference, though. I am dedicating my life to this, and I will never stop.
Good for you.
You guys can hold me to it. I will take my last breath. Hopefully it's on camera. Hopefully it's in a long time into the future. But I am never going to stop. I think every human on earth is here to become their best version of themselves and share that journey and process and what worked with them to other people. Some people just keep it for their kids.
Right.
I think that's a missed opportunity. Some people might expand it to their community, their CrossFit gym, their church. I think, again, go bigger. Give it to the world. Give yourself to the world, and it'll transform everything.
Dan, I want to conclude by making a statement. You are absolutely the real deal. And when I say that, I mean, you are such, you're a good human being. I mean, you came out of that car on my driveway, and you were just like, you're truly, you're a good guy, and you haven't let your success go to your head, and a lot of people would. So I commend you on that, and I just sincerely thank you for being here and for doing this interview.
It's an honor, man.
Thank you.
Really appreciate it, Gary.
Thank you.